right, there's one more thing I want to touch on, Trags, before all of this nonsense with Josh McDaniels broke. There are a couple things I wanted to touch on, but if we have to narrow it down, because this is our first roundtable since the Super Bowl, Malcolm Butler didn't play that whole game. 2 days later, everybody's still scratching their head. I mean, theories?
Well, this looks like a personal decision to me, and not personnel decision. This time it was personal. And, you know, that old expression comes up when there's a grudge that one person holds against the other. When you have a player of Malcolm Butler's ability, and he's played in every single postseason snap, he's played in 98% of the snaps, and yes, he was benched for the Saints game and came into the game when Eric Rowe was injured. But he had since proven himself the rest of the regular season to a level where that didn't happen again, right? And he played in every single snap of the postseason. And for this to drastically change, something drastic happened. And, you know, we were talking off air, and I think it's something that I haven't heard a lot in the last 48 hours. The potential of this happening on the day of the Super Bowl is not outside the realm of possibility. For something this drastic to have happened and him not even smell the field on defense. He was in for, I guess, one punt return snap. He was in for one special team snap, and that was it. And I just have to believe that something happened between Belichick and Butler so deep, so divisive, that Belichick said, if it means me losing the Super Bowl, I'm going to lose the Super Bowl with you on the sideline. That's what this came down to.
And we've seen players around the league now in the past 48 hours tweeting, really just kind of, you know, confused with Belichick, disappointed in Belichick, whatever. And I'm thinking now as the dust settles, look, they have some changes to make this offseason. They're going to need they have important players to re-sign, and they're going to need to make some signings in free agency as well. They don't have a second corner right now. It would be shut with everything that's happened. Perhaps the most surprising thing at this point would be Malcolm Butler coming back next year.
Yes.
So all of that being said, you know, I look at this, and the whole thing with Belichick has always been, right? And we've heard Rodney Harrison say this. We've heard Willie McGinnis say this. We've heard Ty Law say this. You're not going to necessarily enjoy playing for him. It's not necessarily going to be a pleasant experience, and I'm paraphrasing, but he'll get you to that ultimate goal, and it's worth it in the end. It's not going to be, you know, you're not playing for Pete Carroll. You're not going to have fun at practice, but he's getting you to something you've worked for all your life. And that's always been why, that's how he can be how he is, because he can always say, you know, but I'll win you the Super Bowl. And for him to get to that point and cost those 53 men in the locker room, the coaches, everybody else, their ultimate goal in life because of a selfish decision he made, to me, that kind of ruins the whole shtick. That takes away the whole Patriot Way, becomes null and void after what he did with Malcolm Butler. And without that, I don't see how he's going to be able to sign free agents. I don't know how you can go and say, look, if you come to me, you can make the sacrifices, and we'll get there. And guys on the other side might say, well, what happened with Malcolm Butler?
Right, and that's something Bill Belichick's going to have to answer to when he looks to go out there and sign free agents. And maybe there is a very legitimate reason why he was benched to start the game. We understand that.
Right.
But as you watch that game, I was there in the press box watching the game unfold. I kept looking at Malcolm Butler on the sideline, Alex, doing jumping jacks, jumping up and down. He was gassed. He was juiced and ready to get in that game and contribute. And I would make the argument, at that point, you want to capitalize on Butler's energy. You want a guy who is driven to have a point to prove. How many times do you hear coaches in any sport say, I want a motivated player out there? That can only help our cause. Was Malcolm Butler possibly any more motivated than after being told he was going to be benched to start that game? Right? Am I right? You know,
no, you're absolutely right. And just to the other side of the coin, you know, you can put him in and you get him all jacked up and you get the best out of him. But also, you saw what was out there. Let's say he didn't do anything wrong. Let's say Belichick was legitimately worried about him having lingering issues with the flu and him missing practice, right? Let's say Belichick was legitimately worried for a second. Let's just pretend he was legitimately worried for football reasons. You can't tell me he saw what was going on that field and thought Malcolm Butler would have only made it worse. It couldn't have gotten worse. They
I
scored
agree.
on all but 2 possessions. How can
That's
you
what I
not
wrote
even put
after
him
the
in and
game.
try?
After the game, I wrote that apparently Bill Belichick, by his post-game explanation, thought that Johnson Batamosi, Jordan Richards, and Eric Rowe were better than Malcolm Butler. That is almost unconscionable to think that would be the case. You saw Jordan Richards; he couldn't keep up with Zach Ertz. That's another issue that hasn't been touched.
Right.
Is why was Jordan Richards defending Zach Ertz? That made no sense. Where was, and this was before, mind you, Patrick Chung hurt himself twice in that Super Bowl. This was before that, well before that. And you're wondering, where's Patrick Chung? And he was on the other side of the field. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. You saw Jordan Richards sticking with a running back down the sideline and fell down. He was incapable of pass coverage. That's never been his thing. His thing is to play in the box, play a pseudo linebacker position, a hybrid linebacker position, if you will, and that's his strength, and he can tackle well. There's no questioning that. But to expect him to drop back in one-on-one coverage, he was in one-on-one coverage in the Super Bowl, is ridiculous. And it just, again, that makes no sense. And I think, the film speaks for itself, and we can go over, Johnson Batamosi in the slot. He was beaten a couple of times. But Eric Rowe, if they really thought Eric Rowe was that great, he gave up 3 big passes on the Eagles' first drive that ended in a field goal before Rowe made a nice play in the end zone on Aguilar. He did do that. But still, what was going on? What was the thinking?
And just to add to that, I was left wondering, and this goes to the Rowe stuff and the Jordan Richards stuff, if losing Malcolm Butler, if they found that out the last second and that shifted the coverages. I don't think Eric Rowe was originally supposed to be on Alshon Jeffrey. I think that was supposed to be Stephon Gilmore, but you take Butler out of the question, you bump everybody one up on the depth chart.
Right.
That turns Gilmore into your rover. That puts Rowe on Jeffrey, and maybe that's how, through all the shifting, Jordan Richards ends up on Zach Ertz because you're down a defensive back. And the other thing is, if they knew Malcolm Butler was going to play, and they were using Jordan Richards as a linebacker, which I think really cost them in the running game. We saw what LeGarrette Blount did. You're telling me David Harris couldn't have helped you more in that game than Malcolm Butler ultimately did? If Malcolm Butler's at least inactive, and let's say they activate David Harris, at least you have help against the run. At least Jordan Richards isn't in there defending against the run. And that's why I think, Trags, when you talked about it before, we said off the air, this must have happened Sunday. I wonder if it happened as late as 5:30. I wonder if it happened after the inactives came out. Because they could have used David Harris in that game. They could have used Alan Branch in that game. And to have Butler active and refuse to play him, to me, is worse than making him inactive. If he's inactive, Belichick has plausible deniability. He wasn't dressed. What do you want me to do? They could have used David Harris. They could have used Alan Branch. Right. If they knew Butler wasn't going to play. Jordan Richards wouldn't have been in those situations. The whole thing is just from not playing him to activating him to how they replaced him. It's all just terrible. It's all just terrible coaching by Bill Belichick.
Well, I want to correct something I said. I said Aguilar. No, it was Alshon Jeffrey that Rowe broke up that pass in the end zone on that first Eagles drive. I just want to record to reflect that. But again, this is going to be debated until the cows come home or until Bill Belichick comes out and says, yeah, here's what you all didn't know about the minutes between the inactives coming out and kickoff. If you think about it, Alex, that rationale, what you just explained, is something, first of all, I haven't heard anybody talk about and would explain why he would be on the sideline and not dressed and active and not get into the game.
They can't change it, right? After 90 minutes before the game?
Correct. Once you're active, you're active, and that's the way it is. And if I don't know if something emotionally happened with Malcolm on the sideline, in the locker room, if he said something, if he got into it. But again, and I said this to you off the air, if something like that happened in front of the team, we would have known about that. And, it also makes you wonder about the comment about the divided locker room that, Dante Hightower liked from Brandon Browner. How would he know that? How would he know that locker room was divided? Somebody was talking about it divided our locker room. Well, how would they have known that? The only time they would have known that is in the 90 minutes before the team took the field, and they were shocked and they were shell shocked. That is probably the most plausible explanation. That and something totally personal happening between Belichick and Butler. It had to be something so unforeseen that Belichick went from, I'm going to have you dressed and ready for the game, to you're going to stick with me on the sideline the whole game. It's the only thing that makes sense.
One more thing before we close, because we mentioned the last segment, and you just brought something up that I want to talk about. We mentioned that the Patriots possibly need to sign free agents, and they're going to need a second corner. The biggest corner on the market this year is going to be Richard Sherman. That's a guy who's talked about coming here. It's a guy who's talked about his respect for Belichick, but he's very close with Brandon Browner, and he's reportedly very close with Malcolm Butler. This decision could not only have cost them the Super Bowl, it could perhaps cost them a legitimate chance at the best free agent on the market.
Oh, there's no doubt it could have cost them that. And I'm sure that if the Patriots wanted somebody like Richard Sherman, they would go after him hard. There's no question about that. I mean, he is on the level of Darrelle Revis. But again, everybody thought, the Patriots would bow at the altar of Revis. It's not the way Bill Belichick rolls, even for a guy like Richard Sherman. And which it makes it remarkable that the Patriots have won the way they have for so long. They do it their way. Bill does it his way. If you want to jump on board and you play our way, we'd love to have you, and we'll fight with you to the death. But if you don't, look somewhere else. The other thing I want to also bring up, and we haven't talked about this, and nobody has, Dietrich Wise. I get the fact that he was coming off a concussion as well. The Patriots had no pass rush on Sunday. They had no sacks. They cramped Foles' style a couple of times during that game, but they really were never able to sustain it. Where was Dietrich Wise? I mean, maybe he was suffering from the effects of the concussion, but again, so was Rob Gronkowski, and Wise was a full participant on Friday in practice. And for him to only play 6 of the 75 snaps is head-shaking, to say the very least.
I mean, Belichick made a lot of questionable decisions, and me and my brother like to say with any kind of, explosive sports story like this, it's going to make a hell of a 30 for 30.
Yeah.
10, 15 years from now. That's probably when we'll find out what happened. This roundtable has been brought to you by DraftKings. Go to DraftKings.com and use the promo code CLNS for free match play. It's also brought to you by Simple Contacts, where you will be blown away by the quality and ease of use. Go to simplecontacts.com/TRAGS and use the promo code TRAGS, that's TRAGS, for $30 off your first order of contact lenses. Today's segment is also brought to you by RX Bar, the whole food protein bar made with 100% whole ingredients. Support our programming by going to rxbar.com/CLNS. Use the promo code CLNS, where listeners could receive up to 25% off of their first purchase. Well, Trags, I'd like to say we'll go off quietly into the offseason here. We might get some time off.
I don't think so. By the way, here's what the Colts say. I don't know if you saw this. They are surprised and disappointed at Josh McDaniels' decision.
You ready for McDaniels Gate, Trags?
What's that?
You ready for McDaniels Gate?
It's coming. You know it is. And I think, to your point, I think the league is probably going to go, okay, what happened? And, again, McDaniels, if nothing was signed, is totally, within his right to say, yeah, I had to change of heart. I didn't like the feel there. And instead of making a rash decision and sticking with something I'm not comfortable with, I decided not to go. So we'll see.
I'm going to go freshen up on my legal jargon just in case. I think we're in for another court battle. But for Mike Petraglia, my name is Alex Barth. You can get the rest of our Patriots content on clnsmedia.com, on Twitter at PatriotCLNS. So until the next story breaks, whatever that is, he's Mike Petraglia. I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.